Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Gramoglia, the president and CEO here at Woodland Pond, and this is my weekly address for a Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. Today, I'm going to start with some exciting news coming out of the pub area related to our complimentary coffee program. And as you can see, I'm holding a cup that is a little bit different than what we've used before. This is a paper cup, not a plastic cup, but the exciting thing about the announcement is if you have been anywhere in the pub area in the last 2 weeks, you've seen some dramatic improvements in our Simply to Go case and offerings, and with our hydration stations, the organization of the area. And effective tomorrow morning, we will be bringing you freshly made from beans drip coffee for the complimentary coffee program. This is a partnership with one of our many opportunities with Sodexo, and it's going to replace the existing automated machine. It turns out, and I wasn't fully versed on this, and Neil, who is the interim GM for the dining program, filled me in. The coffee that has been coming out of the machine that we have at the pub for complimentary coffee is essentially reconstituted, dehydrated coffee, and it doesn't come from a bean. So essentially, it's like kind of like Sanka. It dissolves in your in when it's in the machine and then goes into the cup. That's not really what we want to be serving. So we were able to fire up some equipment that we had that allows us to brew fresh coffee from actual coffee beans every day for you. And so rather than going to the machine sort of right next to the Simply to Go case and hitting a button and getting the Woodland Pod version of Sanka, you will now get from the canisters and the carafes on the sideboard fresh coffee. That will stay out every day until dinner service is completed. So it will go all the way through dinner, just as it always has been envisioned to. I know right now it's 24/7, but that's because it's basically Sanka. We will reevaluate if those hours need to change, but right now that works well with our staff, and we currently are not seeing activity on those machines much outside of 7 p.m. and 7:30 or 7 a.m. and 7:30 to 8 o'clock at night. So we can always, rethink this because we do have staff here 24/7. We also don't want to have waste because clearly this product is a little bit more expensive for us, obviously, due to the quality, but isn't available on demand to the same extent as the other. It's a totally different product, nice fresh coffee. So we do hope you enjoy that. Getting into calendar type items, today at 2 p.m. in the PAC, Marilyn Malou, who is one of our residents, is going to be doing a presentation on Parkinson's basics. Marilyn is an excellent resource for this because Marilyn does indeed have Parkinson's herself and has begun a very successful Parkinson's support group or Parkinson's group here at Woodland Pond. And she thought it would be beneficial. The group also agreed to talk to the residents that are interested in learning more about Parkinson's, especially the things that you may think you know, but might not be quite right, and what to expect of your neighbors that might get this diagnosis, different risks and opportunities related to Parkinson's. So please don't miss that at 2 o'clock in the PAC. We did have 2 off-campus trips scheduled for tomorrow, and both will be canceled due to impending weather. We're expecting a ton of rain tomorrow. So that was the trip to the Ulster County Fair and also the trip, I believe it was at Vanderbilt Mansion, but to hear the West Point Band. Sometimes in these situations, we have to make decisions. We can't wait until the last minute because obviously there's planning and so forth that goes involved, but obviously the weather's not great for tomorrow. On Thursday evening, we do have transportation going to Kingston to help support and view the work of our residents that have been working with Brenda Ann Keneally, who her services were brought to us through a grant, through a partnership that we were able to enter into with actually by the hands of one of our former board chairs. And so the memoir scrapbooking program and project is now complete. And each of the residents that created a memoir scrapbook, I think there are 9 or 10, maybe 11, are ready to show their work and present in either film or audio form what the project meant to them. And I've had a chance to have a sneak peek at some of these scrapbooks, and it's actually incredible to me how many of the residents kept the word that Brenda Ann uses, ephemera, you know, photos, movie tickets, postcards, all different kinds of things that were able to be digitized and are now included along with stories in these scrapbooks. So we are going to be doing an encore presentation of that on August 21st here on campus, but I know that the residents would love to feel the support of their neighbors up there in Kingston. We will bring as many residents as our multiple fleet can carry, but you certainly can carpool. And we do invite you to do that. Doors open at 5:30 and the event is set to begin at 6:30, and that is on Thursday. This week, we have all things Olympics kicking off, starting on Thursday. Well, technically, yesterday we had the torch relay. And tonight we do have the French Olympic themed dinner in the main dining room. But our sort of more active events, ping pong tournament, the first round of that will be on Thursday. We're having a Rummy Cube tournament in the health center. The second round of the ping pong tournament, that actually the final round will be on Friday. We have a watermelon seed spitting contest also on Friday, and a Olympic themed classical movie night showing Chariots of Fire on Friday night. Just in order to stay tuned on all of these Olympic related events, just keep an eye on Connected Living and on information that you find in the mailroom. Things could change, but this way you don't have to memorize everything. Tomorrow, a number of members of our design team for the expansion renovation project. So this includes folks from the architect and engineers, folks from the interior design firm, Dave Roberts, will all be meeting with, starting tomorrow and going into Thursday, more than 60 residents. So thank you to all the residents that have volunteered for this, to participate in focus groups on specific topics of interest to the design team and to get your feedback. Currently, we do still have vacancies on dining and hospitality, which I was actually really surprised about given how many opinions we have here about dining and hospitality. This is your chance to really get your thoughts and ideas out there. If you are interested in coming to the dining task force, we can get you some information about when that's going to be, but we do still have vacancies on that task force, and we really want to see that be full. We really feel like each task force, I think there's 6 or 7 of them, should have at least 15 residents. We tried not to double up too many residents on more than one task force because we're trying to spread the wealth, get as many opinions as we can, and also be able to share the updates as to where they are. So you're not going to want to miss those focus groups. Currently in the health center, we are on masks. We have had a couple of cases of COVID. Everybody's doing fine, but we are required to still test anyone that's symptomatic for COVID. It does present as a common cold or even less. Typically, folks are not presenting with a fever. Sometimes it'll be a headache. Sometimes it'll be a sore throat. Sometimes it'll be a runny nose. But regardless, in the health center, we are required to test. And what that does is it sets off a timer for the next 10 days that the entire unit needs to be on masks. What that has resulted in is we are finding that more residents are finding their way into primarily skilled nursing and assisted living through the back entrances and not checking in with reception than we had expected. So you are going to see some revised signage. The regulations do require that regardless of how often you go on those units and whatever, you really must, and it's a mandate, sign in at reception. So go into the health center lobby to get into those units. I completely understand that sometimes staff do feel a little bit of a guilt trip and will hear you knocking or see you coming down the hall. And we're going to reinforce this with them. This is not a Woodland Pond issue. This is a regulatory issue. We cannot have anyone visiting the units without having been screened at reception, particularly when we have active COVID on the units. So despite the fact that it is a little bit of a longer walk, we do need everyone to check in at reception before you proceed to skilled or to assisted. Everybody seems to be pretty good about Garden View, but on assisted and skilled, we do see residents there all the time that are not checking in with reception. It's also a significant safety issue, just as we talked about last week with independent living, from a potential emergency situation, evacuation situation. We need to know who's in our buildings and on our units, because God forbid, if something happens and we need to do a head count, we have to know where you are, at least within our building. That's not to say that, you can't be in your home or whatever, but if you're traveling to a different unit, or if you're visiting and you're not a resident, we absolutely have to know that so that we can give appropriate head counts to first responders and our staff and just be accountable. Let's see. We have an update on the general manager position for dining. The interviews are complete at this point, and we expect that the offer will be made to the general manager, director of dining candidate that we have selected within the next 24 hours. We are also we have contemplated and given permission to do some changes within the org chart to allow for some internal promotion of some other staff. So those offers should be going out as well. So we should have an announcement for you, depending on Sodexo's background check process, within the next week, I would expect. But we're really excited about that critical position. We want to make sure that everybody is engaged. One thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to in my calendar section, is that tonight at 5 is our quarterly family council meeting for the health center. And for those that are not familiar with this, every quarter we hold an optional family council meeting. New York State regulations require that we hold resident council meetings every month, or very periodically. We do them every month for each of the units in the health center, but there's no regulation or requirement for family council meetings. And we had found years ago, before COVID, that this was something that the families appreciated. They liked the opportunity to have one-on-one interaction with other family members at the same time as with management. So that is at 5 p.m. today. If you did not receive a link to that, that means you are not on our health center family email list, and we need to get that rectified. If you're not, you can contact concierge for that. For those that don't know the number, that is 845-256-5600. Again, that's 845-256-5600, and we will get you added to the health center family or loved one email distribution list. This is not for residents. They have a separate process that they follow. This is strictly for families or loved ones. And a number of us participate in those. It's a combination of Zoom and in person. So we really try to hit as many as we can, and they take an hour or less each time. The last thing I wanted to talk about is a repeat of a topic that I discussed last week, and we've discussed quite a bit actually in the last month or so. And I have a story to tell, and it's not a great story. So you all have heard me say repeatedly over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks, that we are really making a concerted effort in independent living to make sure that we have your advance directives on file. This was not a requirement when you moved in. We did accept healthcare proxies and living wills, but we did not require you to have a MOST form handed into us. We are now requiring that of all new folks that move into independent living, but we are doing sort of a retrospective on the independent living folks. And I've talked about why it's really important to have these forms be intact, because when you can't speak for yourself, the only place we can go, the only place EMS can go, or a first responder or a Good Samaritan, is to the wishes that you have provided to us. The forms that we have, as you know, I put this in the Chanticleer. A lot of them that we do have are dated. In other words, they're not current. They are incomplete. So maybe not signed by a witness, maybe not signed by you, maybe not dated. And in that case, we are unable to rely on those. So we're, again, really trying to go through and encourage everyone to get the form either from outside Mary Jo's office or at concierge and get those updated with your physician, whatever your advance directives might be. Now to the story. Yesterday, there was a code blue called in skilled nursing. And this is only the third time that there has been a code blue in our building. And a code blue is when a resident that is on file a full code, in other words, wants to be resuscitated, has been found without a pulse. In this particular case, the resident wasn't found without a pulse. The resident was found unconscious and unresponsive, but with a pulse. We contacted EMS immediately. EMS arrived. The resident was then coded. In other words, lost their pulse, stopped breathing. And at that point, because EMS was here, they immediately began the CPR, the chest compressions. This went on for a very extensive period of time, more than a half an hour of chest compressions. And ultimately, EMS, supported by our incredible nursing staff that were there on hand as needed, along with the New Paltz Police Department, were able to get a pulse back in this particular person. She never regained consciousness and within moments, again, coded. So after half an hour of chest compressions plus, she was technically revived, but never regained consciousness, was intubated, and then quickly coded again. This was a very traumatic situation and dramatic situation for everyone involved. AEDs have a very limited use. They do not supplant chest compressions, and CPR cannot be stopped without the word of a doctor, actually two. So chest compressions have to continue regardless of whether or not anyone that's present thinks that there's a chance. They have to continue until a physician says that they can stop. In this particular case, the family had arrived and the healthcare proxy informed EMS that they did not wish to try to resuscitate the resident again. And she was able to pass, well, she had passed, but she was able to live out the last, moments peacefully with her family at her bedside. This emphasizes the importance of making sure that we clearly understand what your advance directives are and that everyone is clearly understanding the process by which resuscitation happens, the decisions that get made, and so forth. When we had our end of life discussion meeting or opportunity yesterday, so in lieu of a Death Cafe, one of the things that came out of that is that many residents commented on the fact that they'd like to understand more about this. So our Mental Health and Wellness Committee had already decided that in September, for our scheduled presentation, we would like to bring in one or more medical practitioners that can speak directly to this issue. So not hearing it from me and not hearing it from another talking head, but actually from we're talking to a couple of different practitioners that are in our circle, as well as hearing from some of the nursing staff in our employ that have actually participated in code blues before and actually had to perform resuscitation. I would actually like to have our nurse staff educator bring our resuscitation mannequins to that presentation and show you how the AED works and how those chest compressions work and so forth. I think it would be very educational for everyone and give you all an opportunity to ask questions. In the meantime, if you are choosing to have your MOLST forms completed, you absolutely need to see the physician, your primary care physician, to have those updated. I think you should point blank ask them. Talk to me in your own words about what each of these things means. Finding an 80-something-year-old individual in skilled nursing that is unconscious, unresponsive, and has no pulse is a different circumstance than, let's say, I'm walking across the street and I get electrocuted. I'm otherwise healthy, 45 years old, Every situation is different, but the person that you need to be speaking to about any concerns or questions that you have is your family or your loved ones, if that's a trusted resource for you, and your maybe your spiritual guides, and also your physician. In the meantime, we will get that education and Q&A scheduled for September. And I hope that everybody does plan to attend that or watch it on our WP 1340. I obviously am very regretful that this individual didn't make it, but I'm so proud of the action of our team. We have been drilling on code blues just in the last couple of weeks and ongoing. They really performed well. EMS did a heroic effort in bringing that person back after such a long time of no pulse. But at the end of the day, the decision was made and she was able to pass peacefully. So I want to share that with you because it's a real story and it just happened. And sometimes it's important for us to hear these things. I don't have anything else for my update today, but I will be here and you know where to find me. Thank you.